Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Welcome to Zenful Conversations. For information on future guest speakers and our many Zoom offerings, please visit zenfulconversations.com. My name is Zenjen Brown. I'm your host, and we're here today with our guest speaker, Diane Chrestman. Diane, thank you so very much for being here with us today.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. Let me give you a little bit about Diane. Diane Chrestman is the author of Zenergy Mindfulness. She's also a licensed mental health counselor, has a master's degree in social work from Georgia State University, and is certified in clinical hypnotherapy and energy psychology. Diane has also received certification from the Association of Energy Psychology in 2013 and has practiced meditation and mindfulness training with Zen Buddhist monks for the past 7 years or so. We're here today to talk with Diane about mindfulness, energy healing, and her first book, Zenergy Mindfulness. This is described as the intersection of Buddhist and energy psychology for mental health and wellness. Diane considers it an honor to empower clients by teaching them techniques to improve their mental health and overall sense of well-being. She says the alternative therapies practiced, including energy psychology, have been shown in clinical trials to be effective treatments for a number of psychological conditions. And many people are seeking alternative therapy options due to the side effects of the medications. And Diane finds combining traditional and alternative therapy provides a comprehensive and effective treatment for her clients. Her methods are eclectic, utilize interventions that range from classic to new age models. She also believes that in order to see improvements, you need to be an active participant in your own work. Diane says there's no one quite like you. Diane, thanks again for being here with us today.
Oh, it's so nice. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very passionate, about my work, and I just see the suffering of so many people in our communities and that type of thing. So I just doing what I can in my corner of the world to alleviate that as much as I can.
All right, I hear you. Information on how to connect with Diane directly will be shared at the end of this conversation, as well as in the follow-up email to all the registrants, which will go out tomorrow. Diane, in reference to the side effects of the psychotropic medications that was mentioned in your bio, can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, we probably have all seen the commercials, so, for example, this medicine for depression may cause suicide thoughts, which is an sad irony for the medicine that you're taking for depression. It might cause suicidal thoughts. Sometimes just the intensity, people that go on psychotropic meds, they find either the intensity of their symptoms gets escalated, or often what people complain about too is just kind of a numbness. They're not feeling maybe their depression as much or their anxiety as much, but they're not feeling anything. And many folks that I've worked with that want to get off of the medication list that as one of the cause. They're just tired of feeling numb. One of the interesting things, about medicine, and I used to be pretty, I don't know, I guess I was in the camp of never psychotropic meds, but I've come off of that, and I'm a more middle of the road clinician. I feel like there are some times that they're needed, and but what I do not agree with is that they are the first line of defense for mental and emotional problems. And I think that's how they're being utilized. I also want to point out mental health. So our emotions, say our happiness, we can pick any emotion. If we are treating mental health from the same fundamental perspective as we treat physical health, which is a mechanicalistic approach. In other words, if you have something wrong with the heart or the ear or whatever on the body, there is an organ, it has very objective quantitative things about it. It's a certain size, it's beating so many times a minute, that kind of thing. Well, with happiness, how do we measure that? If we're going to do surgery on someone's happiness, where do we make the incision? And the answer is, who the heck knows? But we're treating it. The model of treatment is from this mechanicalistic point of view perspective, which right out of the gate does not make sense. In fact, the first psychotropic med that was used in the 1950s was actually a medication for tuberculosis. It had nothing to do with mental health at all. It just gave people energy. And at the time in the 1950s, psychiatrists were, because there weren't any, and so they weren't making the big money as other MDs. And this medicine for TB gave people energy, and psychiatrists said, well, hey, our depressed people need energy. They're very lethargic and they don't do anything. And that's kind of how the ball got rolling.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a couple ladies said they needed to leave early today, so I just want to see if anybody has any questions they'd like to ask right away at the beginning here. Do you have any questions you'd like to ask? Everybody's on mute, so I can't hear anybody if they do.
I'm good at this point.
Okay, great. Thank you, Diane. Let's just stay with your bio for another question, please. The energy psychology. Can you explain that for our listeners?
Yes, so energy psychology uses subtle energy systems that are thought in Eastern traditions to be in the body. So, for example, the meridian system and the chakra system, in order to make improvements in our physical and mental health. So it also brings in other parts of psychotherapy that are more recognized in Western modalities, such as the left and right hemisphere. We have a left and right hemisphere. So if someone, for example, is suffering from like a lot of racing thoughts and they can't control or they can't calm down their mind, one thing that might help is to help balance the energy, or we could say, if we wanted to discuss this from a neurobiological point of view, we could say balancing the amount of neurons that are firing right on the left and right hemisphere. That's more of a Western psychotherapy verbiage. But we know from, you just have to look at the MRI from a stroke victim to know if a stroke has happened on the right side of the body, the stroke has happened on the left side of the brain. We've known that for a long time. So there are things that you can do to balance the left and right parts of the body. So I guess what I'm saying in the energy psychology, the EP, one of the reasons I went with the training from the Association of Comprehensive Energy Psychology is because much of their modalities are research based. So as a licensed clinician, I can go and get continuing education credits from the Association of Comprehensive Energy Psychology. I cannot go and get continuing educations for like Reiki. I'm not knocking Reiki. I'm just saying there hasn't been enough clinical trials that the boards will recognize it, and I can get CEUs in that. So what you're doing is you're using the subtle energy systems of the body in order to help improve mental health problems by manipulating those energies.
Yeah, it's not the easiest thing to explain.
It's not. And what is there a part of that explanation that like feels too abstract to you all?
No, we've been having conversations for 4 years. There's a private Facebook group that I believe you're a part of now, and we've been having we have conversations every day. It's much like this without the guest speaker. It's just me coming live and we talk about different things. Sometimes we've been reading from your book, etc. And we've been talking about this, the way and to use energy to improve our life or enjoy our experience of life, whatever, raise our vibes and all of this stuff for the past 4 years. And I just really realized that it was energy psychology. And recently, over the past few guest speakers mentioned this energy psychology. And I'm like, my mind is latched onto that. And that's where I'm at now. So now I'm checking into that certification that you're talking about, actually.
Oh, awesome. Good. That's so wonderful.
Yeah, so it's been challenge to me to put it into words of what it all is, for people that like, well, what are you talking about?
Well, one reason that it's difficult to put into words is because the very things that we're talking about are ineffable. In other words, there are no words or concepts really to capture. Okay, so one of my Zen teachers used to say, the minute we begin trying to talk about this, we've made a huge mistake. But we communicate through words. So we'll do the best we can. We'll try, but understand that whatever concept, whatever words that we're using is going to be inadequate. How would one describe the energy of happy, feeling happy, as opposed to feeling lethargic?
Well, and it's based on my perception of all of it anyway.
That is true too. But there's probably at some point we can all agree that there's a certain type of quality to it. Right?
Yeah.
So when you're talking about changing someone's energy and you're saying, I can't find the words. Well, that's because there are no words that will adequately do it. You can do the best you can, but it's going to be lacking.
It's really fascinating. One more here in your bio, it says you've had meditation and mindfulness training with Zen Buddhist monks for the past 7 years. What kind of experience was that? Is that some kind of loveliness that you could share with us? It sounds beautiful.
My children would say I'm a monk stalker. So
nice.
I find a monk or see a nun or a monk and I begin stalking. So that's been part of the experience. Really what happened is it's probably been 10 years now. I had an office. I'm in suburban Atlanta, and outside of my window, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was a Buddhist monastery, and I would see the monks outside walking. And I don't know, I was fascinated just by watching them walk to the mailbox. I would look at them and think, I want to go through life with the same way, with the same peace that they seem to be. And it just was fascinating to me. So one day I just went over there, I stopped, and one thing led to another. And I kind of got plugged into the various monasteries that are in Atlanta. And there are a few. Several of I would say most of them are from the Zen tradition. But the Zen traditions of Buddhism can be quite different depending upon if it's coming from Korea or Vietnam has a very big influence. The Zen temples that where the monastics are from Vietnam are normally from the tradition of Thich Nhat Hanh. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Thich Nhat Hanh, as opposed to some of the Zen traditions coming from Korea. Those can be from a tradition of a koan practice. Are you familiar with that?
No, I am more familiar with Thich Nhat Hanh.
Yeah. So a koan tradition is when you meditate. So a koan is like a riddle that has no answer. and that's what you meditate on. And so people would say, well, why in the heck would you do that? And the reason is because if you meditate for long enough on something that has no answer or that's ineffable, you come to a point where you realize the inadequacies of all your thinking. You get to a point where you recognize the inadequacies of all your concepts. And then hopefully ego begins to melt away. So that's a little bit different practice. To me, it's a harder kind of, I've had more difficulty with that practice. So yeah, I just kind of hop around to different temples and have taken instruction from monks and Zen masters in these different traditions over the years. It's been
That's pretty neat.
beneficial.
Oh, life-changing, darling, eh?
and
Life-changing, no doubt.
indeed. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
oh,
then I
yeah.
went in 2019. 2019. I was lucky enough to go to Thich Nhat Hanh's, I call it the mothership, the first monastery that he opened in France, and took the 5 mindfulness trainings there and got my Buddha name. They give you, like, when you go through that, they kind of give you like a kind of the same thing of baptism in the Christian tradition, kind of being reborn. You get a new name. Yeah.
Right. That's really awesome. Awesome. My travels have not brought me there at this point anyway, right?
Well,
Yeah. I said my travels haven't brought me anywhere like that, at least not yet at this point. That sounds beautiful though.
What's your
It
name?
sounds lovely.
What's your name?
My name is Compassion. Let's see. Compassionate Heart of Understanding.
Oh, wow. Compassionate Heart of Understanding. I'm gonna go write that one down. Compassionate. That's nice. I like that.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
Actually, you guys are, Jen, I know you're in Florida. I don't know where the rest of your listeners are, but actually Thich Nhat Hanh has also got a monastery in Mississippi. I don't know how close, it's closer than France. And I actually went there too for a retreat. It's Magnolia Grove is the name of the monastery. It is just lovely. It is so nice. If you know, any of you guys are ever looking to try to plug into a retreat, it's close and it's just beautiful. It was wonderful there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that didn't happen one day. A field trip to something like that. We do field trips, but they are a lot more local. But I wouldn't be surprised it didn't grow into that.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about? There's so much we could really talk for days on this. The whole book really is loaded with so much information, and we're talking about the book Energy Mindfulness, which actually a couple of the ladies have purchased it, and I think it's a very good reference book. I think it's loaded with great information and
Thank you.
Factual and straightforward. I really do like it. We could talk about either the benefits, meditation as benefits and different techniques, or we could talk a little bit about self-love and healthy boundaries.
Your call.
Let's do a little bit of self-love and healthy boundaries on page 30. It talks about that self-love and healthy boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a good portion of the ladies that come by and listen to the messages are givers.
Yeah.
And some of them, I mean, like I'm a recovering people pleaser myself, but coming back from the dead almost, right? So it's about not these boundaries and this. Yeah. Can you talk about that, please?
Yeah. You know, and I think that, you know, females even more than males are conditioned to, because of our culture. So we're conditioned to be more submissive. And so I think that boundaries is normally, this is very, very broad stroke, okay, but normally, for example, the clients that I work with females, I have to coach them on turning up their level of firmness because we tend to be so submissive. And if I'm working with a male on setting healthy boundaries, I have to coach him on turning it down because the level of firmness is always something to be considered. So, for example, my level of firmness, if I'm setting a boundary with like a 4 or 5 with a child, normally children want to please their adults, until puberty hits. But so normally with the child, a very gentle approach is enough, very, very gentle. If there is a power differential, you're setting a boundary with someone and there's a great power differential, the level of firmness needs to be considered. But it's always something that we have to consider, like what is the right amount of firmness in setting the boundary? Does this need a light touch? Or do I need to, has my touch been a little too heavy? Do I need to turn it down? Or do I need to be a little bit more firm? And I think being firm can include a couple things, well, how do I be more firm? Well, one thing, be very clear about what you're asking for. I think that aligning yourself with that energy can be very good. So having confidence, and for something like that, if you felt like lack of confidence was a problem, you could do a round of tapping on that. Yeah, and I think just, keeping in mind that sometimes setting a boundary with somebody will, especially if you do it skillfully and with the right amount of firmness, it might be something, a very loving act. If you can let somebody know, look, this thing keeps happening. And when it happens, you're shooting yourself in the foot. It's creating a lot of suffering for you. Have you ever noticed that or considered that or something like that? You can be helping that person to see their own suffering. That's part of the boundaries too. It's not like a win-lose thing.
Yeah, well, I sometimes, we're talking about, it depends on the person, I think, really, too, and their fragile, delicate ego or not.
Yes, yeah. That's kind of a power, that can be in the power thing. So, if it's somebody with a very delicate ego, or very low self-esteem, then that needs to be considered when you're setting a boundary. And one thing about the ego that's really important, I think, for us to recognize is that, and this is one of the concepts in Buddhist psychology that's been very beneficial, is to understanding when the ego is not healthy, well, how is it unhealthy? And that can be either an inferiority complex, which is what you're referring to, or it can be a superiority complex. And most of us bounce from one to another. In fact, in noticing my own ego, I have noticed I have had inner thoughts that have been both the inferiority complex and the superiority complex, all in the same thought. It's not either or all the time. It can be very nuanced. I can remember not too long ago talking about suffering, just going through something and thinking, nobody knows suffering like my suffering. Nobody knows pain like my pain. No one could possibly understand what I'm going through. That screams brokenness, doesn't it? I am so broke. So nobody can, I'm so broken. But it's also superiority complex. Like, who the heck am I? To think that nobody has had endured pain like I have had it's pretty inflated.
Right.
So if you know the person well enough when you're setting a boundary to have a sense of what their ego is like, yeah, you can adjust it like that. So someone with a very frail ego, I think it would be just very important, make it very clear that, this is coming from a place of love. This is coming from a place of compassion. And I want you to be good. I want us to be good. And can we talk about this?
Yeah, I would think to me, I always have to watch the seed of caring about their feelings more than my own.
Oh, yeah.
So I think, because you're dipping down with the energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think there's a lot to that. You did mention the EFT tapping. That's something else that's come up with the past 3-4 of our guest speakers. Do you want to give a little conversation about that?
Yeah. I would like to say that when folks are using tapping, that the clinical trials that I mentioned that are listed on the Association of Energy Psychology, or ASAP, on the ASAP website, some of the strongest research pertains to the benefits of tapping. The reason I'm saying that is because there is such a thing as a placebo effect, correct? There's such a thing as we could call it the biology of belief. So if we believe that something is going to work, in some studies, it shows that it boosts the efficacy of that very treatment. Now, we need to be careful we don't get into magical thinking, because that's another topic. But if we can kind of, lift our energy to the point of, okay, there's something to this. Maybe I don't quite understand it, but I'm open to whatever benefits I might realize. That's kind of bringing in a positive placebo effect. So I just like to remind people of that. I think it's a good way. Another way to say that is intention.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the tapping is in the book, what I do is 1 meridian point per meridian system. So like this here right at the tip of the eyebrows is the bladder meridian, gallbladder, stomach, governing central, kidney meridian, and different meridians are associated with different emotions. So the kidney meridian, for example, so if someone were to come in with anxiety disorder, the meridian that would be the most suspicious for having energy off would be the kidney meridian. It's associated with anxiety. So what you can do is a couple different protocols is you can just do a general tapping, that's tapping 1 meridian point on each of the meridian channels. Or you can learn the path of each of the channels. So for example, the stomach meridian, which it starts right here, like if you're looking straight ahead, right below the pupils, the stomach comes down the face and it kind of curves over. It's coming down the chest till it goes right over the nipples. I know you can't see, but coming right down the middle line over the nipples, straight down, straight like the midline of the front of the body, and it's ending at the toes. And it has different meridian, it has different points along the body. This is where, when you go to get acupuncture, where the needles go on these points. Okay. And so if there was a particular channel that seemed to be, maybe you were suspicious or something, that it was involved in a particular emotional state that you were trying to overcome, you could learn the whole channel and tap the whole channel. Or if you went to a practitioner, I use kinesiology, which is, are y'all familiar with kinesiology? Okay. So, you know, if you were to activate this channel and I were to muscle test you, if there is no problem in that meridian channel, the arm will weaken because we've created a circuit and it's going to weaken. If it stays strong, as you're activating that channel, the muscle stays strong. Now I know this is where we need to tap. But the thing that's good about this is that if you're hitting the wrong spot, no harm, no foul. There's not any side effects that we know of. So
Right.
You-
Stimulation all the way. I just wanted to point out that in your book, Energy Mindfulness, you do have you have all the
right.
the gallbladder, the different parts of the body.
Right.
And then there's like 18, 19, 20 pages, 19 or 20 pages on this EFT tapping. It has a lot of information there as to what to do for what. I do think this is a pretty good book. I really do, a pretty good reference book. So any questions on that from anybody?
I'm
Now you're on mute.
sorry. I'm sorry, but I have to leave, but I appreciate you coming and speaking to us. It's fascinating. I'll listen to the recording, but I have to go.
All right. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
for-
for coming. Thank you for
thank
coming.
you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you for coming.
Bye.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, just for a minute or two more, a few more minutes. Mindfulness of body, chapter 5. Chapter 5. Let me get to that page. Mindfulness of body. Our body is always in the present moment. It's our mind that vacates the premises.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about that.
Well, yeah, I guess the mind vacates the premises. Where does it go? It goes to the past or it goes to the future. The body is always here. And the practice of mindfulness of the body, if you're going to begin a formal sitting meditation practice, focusing on the body is, in my opinion, probably one of the best places to start. Why? Because it's tangible. The physical body is tangible. Trying to have deep insights about what the mind is doing, you may or may not be correct. It depends upon your level of insightfulness. And sometimes we're very insightful about certain things, but then about other thinking patterns or relationships or whatever, we can be not very insightful. So the body does not have that degree of intangibleness that the mind has. So it's just a good way to it's always here, you know, it's always in the present now and the present moment. So if you want to anchor yourself, come into your body. What do you know about your body right now?
Right.
Tell me, I'd like to hear from everybody. What do you know about your body right now?
Cheryl, Jody, any of you guys want to talk about anything? Okay. I can do it. What I know about Jody, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I didn't get enough sleep last night. That's what I know.
Okay.
And I've been racing around all day, and then I finally sit down. I'm like, oh my God.
Okay,
I need more sleep.
so you have some fatigue in your body?
Yeah, just not fatigue. It's just being sleepy because I have a really hard time sleeping.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I always have, but as I age, it's really gotten.
Oh goodness.
It's just gotten more
Okay.
detrimental to my health than it used to be. So yeah, I really have a hard time. So
If you were to describe the ineffable qualities in your body of lack of sleep, Is there anything that comes, is there any adverb or any quality that comes? Does it feel more slow or fast? This quality of lack of sleep, does it feel more slow or more fast?
I'm always going. So
Always
I don't
go.
notice it. And now that I sat down, it's when it, no, I notice it.
So right now it's got a quality of like lethargy, sluggishness.
Yeah, it's not, my body's not tired. It's my mind that's.
Oh, your mind you feel it more in
Yeah.
your mind.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
it's just not sharp. Yeah.
Yeah, Cheryl too, go ahead.
Yeah, well, you know me, everyone does. I'm always in a lot of pain.
Oh,
I have a lot of pain and inflammation, and so I don't know how you can use your mind to deal with that.
yeah. Cheryl, let me give you a let me try to help you, because it can, mindfulness practice can help with pain. In the one of the practices in meditation is noticing the distinction between, it's called Panati insight and Paramatha insight. Okay. Panati insight is just very basic awareness, just very basic. So for example, I have pain and I know I have pain. I have pain in the elbow, for example, and I know I have pain. I know the intensity of the pain is whatever on a scale of 1 to 10. Right now it's a 7. Okay. Paramatha insight begins to notice the qualities of that pain without getting caught up in the content, the mental attachments or the mental concepts or the judgments around the pain. And I know that is a tall order, but I've touched it. I have touched it before. I can't sustain it in my practice, not yet, but I have touched it before. Not mine has not been with physical pain. Mine has been more with emotional pain. But this is what it kind of is. And again, I want to remind you guys, the moment we try to talk about this, we've made a huge mistake. We've made a huge mistake, but this is how we communicate. So I'll try. So I'm thinking of physical pain, and I'm thinking it has more of a quality of tightness as opposed to spaciousness. It has a quality temperature-wise, more heat than cool.
Yeah.
It has a quality of rigidness as opposed to spaciousness. It has a quality of endurance rather than impermanence. Okay, so that's kind of an idea of what the Paramatha insight would look like. Now, why that is beneficial is because instead of all the content that comes with the mind, this is pain, oh my gosh, what's happening, I wonder what's wrong, why can't the doctors help me? That's kind of how the mind starts working it, right? We go down the rabbit hole of thinking.
Exactly. Yep.
Yes. You're changing the object of your mind. You're changing the object of your mind from all that content to the Paramatha insights, and it relieves the suffering. Does that make sense?
It actually, it does. It's a totally different concept. I've never even thought of it that way. Yeah.
Yes, yes, it is a completely different concept.
Yeah. Interesting.
Very nice.
Pain is why I don't sleep.
Yeah, well, myself, I'm like you. I barely sleep, and I have to take I take drugs just so that I can sleep, so that I can work.
I
my
should, but I
brain.
won't.
Yeah, I do because I have a stressful, high pace type of job, and if I don't function, I won't have that job anymore. So it's necessary right now, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
Maybe when I retire, I can do things differently.
Yeah. So if you guys do a sitting practice and you try to do this Panati Paramatha insight practice, I want to let you know you have to be quite diligent in the practice, because the mind has, well, I should say the ego. The ego has an attachment to all that content. There's an attachment to it. And allowing that to just melt away and just noticing the qualities of these things, that it takes a lot of discipline. It's easier to me. The practice is just it's much easier to just bring mindfulness to the body. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm saying kind of know what the different practices are and do which one is going to be the most beneficial for you. So if your mind is just so racy and you're like, I am just right now too in it, I am too, like with my emotional pain, some days I am just too attached to my suffering. I am too attached to the idea that no one knows pain like my pain. Other days I feel like that. So if I'm having a day like that, I practice mindfulness of the body. Why? Because it's very tangible. What do I know about my body right now? I know I'm sitting. I know that my hands are folded. I know that my fingers have a little coolness to them. I know I'm breathing. How do I know I'm breathing? Because I feel things happening. I know I'm seeing. How do I know that? Because I see form and color. I know I'm hearing. I know I know my body is receiving sensory input right now. That's very tangible. Paramatha insight's a little harder. You have to almost be like in the right headspace to practice. To practice that, but it can be very beneficial.
Yeah, well, it makes sense.
It does.
It's just bringing you to the present moment. So the
Yeah.
monkey mind turns off.
Yeah, well, I know, bringing the hands and sensations, and that it's grounding, yeah, for sure. But I love how you described that so clearly.
I think I've told you, Jen, before that I hear your voice in my head saying, relax your jaw, relax.
I do too.
I do that at
Often.
I do it at night when I'm laying in bed trying. So maybe it's similar. It's like I'm trying to focus on that to let the other things go. And maybe that's why that portion is my favorite because I have so many issues with my body everywhere.
Yeah,
I
but
have-
it's a practice. It's a practice, and it depends how much, and it's a practice, not even taking on much more stress. We got to be mindful of how we go through our days to even not take on even more. Notice where you're holding the tension, because we accumulate more every single day. So it's the practice of it's just a practice. Our whole life is a practice.
Yeah, and probably of all the obstacles with my clients, because I teach everyone that comes through the door how to meditate. And probably the biggest obstacle is folks just don't have the discipline or something, I don't know, to do the practice. I would say maybe a third of the clients will really embrace the practice. And by embrace it, I mean like do a formal sitting meditation every day. And here's the thing that's puzzling to me. There are days that I don't want to go to my pillow. There are days I don't want to go and sit. Why? Because my mind wants to race. My mind feels like that things to do list is so important and I want to stay okay. And there's some discomfort, maybe. There is some discomfort in going and having that discipline of sitting. But people make the mistake of thinking that, okay, I'm not going to go sit, and therefore I'll avoid this discomfort. You're not avoiding any discomfort.
Mm.
You're maybe avoiding the discomfort of getting on your pillow, but you are not avoiding the discomfort of your racing mind. So see it clearly.
Actually, we're causing more discomfort by not chilling
By
the
not
heck
doing
out.
Yeah, by when we're lazy or whatever, or not disciplined or whatever it might be, we convince ourselves by saying, oh, I'm avoiding that. I get to avoid that. You're not avoiding anything.
No, because actually that release for me, anyway, when I practice, releases tension from my body, from my mind, everything. It allows
Yes.
space. It allows space. And so now everything I do is going to come from that more relaxed space. To when I don't do it, everything's frantic throughout the whole day,
Yes.
And it's like that. That's really something. Yeah, there's chakras, feelings, emotions, dharma. Quite seriously, we really could talk all day because this book is loaded, and I cannot believe it's only 180 pages. But
It's a little dense, maybe. Sometimes I go back and look at it and think, okay, I think I tried to put too much in this, but I appreciate your, I really do appreciate
well, I
you.
like it for a reference manual, and for reading myself. It's reading this to others. I love that I could pull out little sections and talk about. But I think it's a fantastic book, and actually, I'm gonna continue to follow up with you. I'd like to, want to talk to you about maybe doing something.
Okay.
Any questions from anybody else? Anybody would like to say anything?
I do. I have a couple, actually.
Sure.
From when I was going, I have not come close to finishing your book because it is very deep, but
It's dense. It is.
but oh no.
Well, it's our foundation. That's why it's deep, because it's roots. It has to be deep. It's our foundation.
One sec. Sorry, I'm having a battery issue. I gotta plug.
Oh,
One sec.
I was just gonna tell her that we had a 21-day meditation group. There was a lot of us, and
I hope
we
I don't
signed up to
lose
do
you.
it, and yet all of us had the hardest time just trying to get it done every day. It was so
Yeah.
hard that we made a commitment for 21 days. I don't think any of us did it.
My
Can I-
meditation practice changed during that. We had a 21-day, we do these study groups, not all of us, but a handful, a bunch of us do, a couple handfuls of us ladies do. And we had a 21-day meditation study, self-study. And yeah, just making that commitment to that
Yeah.
sit. A lot of us, our whole life is mindful, but the sitting practices. And, we spoke with the author of that book, and this changed me, that group, because that particular study, because he came on, we were talking about meditation. I'm like, my meditation practice is not where it should be, which is so judgmentally labeled, and it makes you feel like you're not doing it well, you're not this, and you might as well forget the whole damn thing. And I said that should, and he's like, could. Your meditation practice is not what it could be. And then it made me feel like, well, yeah, it could be this, it could be that. And it felt so different than should. Was like dead end, you loser, you don't know how to do anything right. And to where could, it's like, then I bought myself a little mat. I mean, my meditation, this is my little meditation.
oh yeah,
right now.
yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, and those meditation pillows, if you're sitting for, my pain starts coming after about the 15-minute mark, 15-20-minute mark. So yeah, investing in a good pillow I would recommend that.
It's still not where it could be, but I am enjoying, and that whole could be. I put this on, or I put the purple one on because that's what I was anyway. It was some kind of ceremony that I went through, and the mala beads, and I really take a minute, to get my energy good, and I've turned it into a little celebration, which is really beautiful. And that was all from that could instead of should.
Amazing. A minor reframe. That's amazing. They're powerful.
Totally.
I still have my question. Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay,
you good?
Cheryl,
No,
yeah.
I just want to make sure you're good. Okay, go ahead.
I plugged my, I got my thing plugged in. I'm good to go. I'm just wondering, you mentioned something earlier, and you were talking about mindfulness and working with other people. And so I jotted down a question here, and I'm wondering, do you find the people that have that critical voice inside, do you find they judge others more, or they become more defensive when you're dealing with them? See, I personally, I don't believe I have that voice that I'm just never really criticized myself a lot. I don't know, maybe I'm different from other people, but I come across people who are like that, so I have a hard time understanding it. So when I was reading your book, I thought maybe do you think they have this inside voice that's criticizing them, that makes them so defensive because they themselves are criticizing themselves? Do you find that?
I don't know that I've ever looked at the connection. Now you've given me something to ponder, but criticizing is a mental process. Criticizing is a form of analysis.
Yeah.
But it's analyzing something in a way that's looking for all the shortcomings. So if you get good at that, so whatever mental process you practice, you will get good at it. Whether that be judging or criticizing or forgiving or whatever. And so if you get good at that if you get good at criticizing, it can be turned internally, which is the critical voice, or externally, which is very like a judgmental person. So yeah, I would think, do self-critical people get very defensive? I'll have to explore that. I know I had a session today with someone who's really very, very defensive. But she doesn't strike me as being self-critical. She's very critical and defensive regarding her relationship, but she kind of has, there's some fodder there for her to be. There's some fodder there for her to be kind of critical and kind of all that. So that's an interesting question.
It is an interesting question, very
Yeah.
deep.
Yeah, I'm always trying to figure that part out, thinking, what is it that, because I guess because if you're not that way, I can be defensive as well, the same as somebody else in a certain, on a trigger subject, I guess. But there's some that are defensive over everything. And I often wonder, what is it?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would just, say the ego is involved. And some combination of a inferiority or superiority complex, and keeping in mind, if you can't figure it out, is that inferiority or superiority? It's maybe both arising at the same time. So your brain is looking for an answer. That's what that organ, this brain, it's like the eyes are an organ. What do? They see. The nose smells, the brain tries to find an answer, but sometimes there's not an answer.
Okay.
So when the inferiority and superiority complex are coming up at the same time, it's going to confuse the brain because it doesn't make sense to the brain. It's kind of like the subatomic particle called the quark. I think that's what they call it, a quark or quark. I think it's a quark. They found this particle that can exist in two places at the same time. That takes our concepts of time and space and blows it up. That's what we're trying to get to. with
Okay.
our practice. And the concept of self, blow it up. And for those of you that suffer from critical voice disorder, I make up disorder names all the time, by the way. So if I say that and you could, yeah, if I say that and you go, I've never heard of that before, I probably just made it up. So for those of you who suffer from critical voice disorder, I would say this. I would appeal to your intellect. I would say the critical voice has a tone like a bully, doesn't it? The critical voice is not kind. It's not compassionate. It's harsh. It's threatening. It condemns. That's a bully. That's a bully sound. That's what the bully sounds like. Let me ask you guys this. Do you think a bully has a quality of intelligence or ignorance?
Right.
Are bullies intelligent or ignorant?
I would say ignorant
That'd
myself.
be
They
my
are
vote too.
They are ignorant. Yes. If I'm going to condemn you because of the color of your hair or skin or the shoes you have, that's ignorance, right? You are taking, when you listen and follow directions and are persuaded by the critical voice, just know that you've chosen for your mentor the village idiot. And I would say, my dear, you're smarter than that. If you're going to have a mentor, if you're going to take influence from something, be wise about who that is and what that is. See that it's kind, see that it's smart. The critical voice is ignorant. It's the village idiot. So when that starts up the ramping, pay it the same attention you would pay the village idiot. How would you treat the village idiot? I'm kind of dismissive. I don't have a village, but the neighborhood may be idiot or something. I'm dismissive to that. I don't stop and give them my full attention and go, oh, tell me more. That's
Mm.
very interesting. It's very insightful. No.
Right.
Just be dismissive with it. Don't listen.
And that's a practice too.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a
Very-
practice.
Yeah, I would have a hard time with that.
It's a
The trick
practice.
is just catching it to begin with.
Oh, that is very
That's the
true.
whole trick.
That is a big part of it. Well,
By the time
one,
you catch it, it's already done what it,
Well, and that's a very important thing though, when we catch it, not to ridicule ourselves or berate ourselves for not catching it sooner, or look at you, you dodo, you're doing it again. That's the time to say, congratulations, you caught it, you recognizing it. We can move forward now.
Mm.
Yeah,
that's just like the oh gosh, what do you call it at the end of the concert when people clap and they come back? The encore. That's just the village idiots encore. So you've listened to the show and now there's the encore. And so
Right.
how do you catch it? It has a certain Paramatha insight. Find the qualities of it through Paramatha insight. What are the qualities of it? What's the tone? What does that tone sound like? When that tone is chattering away, what do you sense happening in your energy system? What do you sense happening in your emotional system? It's a shutting down more than a lifting up, I would imagine.
I think sometimes you have a physical reaction to your pulse
Yes,
in your head,
yes.
absolutely.
your blood
Yes.
pressure. Yeah.
So try to your point, Jody. Yes, you noticing it is like the first challenge or the first practice of insight, and it's very cunning. Boy, is it cunning. My experience has been the more I notice it, just the better it hides. The better the hiding places get. So it takes discernment. Mine feels like a ninja. That's what I tell people. Mine feels like a ninja. Like it's always got this great hiding spot and just ready to come out. But you'll notice it if you begin trying to get a sense of those qualities in your energy system and things when it's yammering away.
Do you mind if I ask you one more question?
Yeah.
My second question. I just out of, I don't know, interest, I've been reading about cognitive behavioral therapy. Do you find there parallels between the energy therapy and cognitive behavior therapy?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm starting to see that. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, in fact, ASAP brings in the subtle energy system, more of an Eastern tradition with CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, because when we are feeling sad, for example, okay, we could use any emotion here, but I'm just picking sadness. It has a certain feeling with it. Sadness feels different than depression.
Right.
What is that? People in ASAP would say that is how your energy is moving through your subtle energy system. That is what you're sensing. So feeling sadness is not a beneficial emotion. So how are we going to change it? Well, we can change it through thinking. We could change it by recognizing thoughts that are catastrophic thinking or black and white thinking. There's different cognitive distortions. We can try and appeal to the logic, change your thinking. We can do that. And then maybe if the thinking changes, then, oh yeah, you're right. And kind of your energy changes. Or another way in is through changing the energy system, and then the thinking changes. It's just kind of like, what way in are we looking at? What way in are we going to try? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Doing the things that'll change your
Yeah.
energy and how you
Well,
feel.
Yeah. So you compare. So for example, when you're tapping, when you're doing this, and you want to like have a let's say a positive, so you're trying to instill a positive thought, say one of feeling confidence. You could tap and you could bring in the thinking, I am confident. I am enough, moving to the stomach channel. I've succeeded before. Coming down here to the, I am enough. And you begin to feel a little bit, something beginning to shift a little bit. So that's pairing, that's instilling a positive thought. That's the CBT part of it, with the energy part of it, instilling it how? By embedding it in your energy system.
okay, that's cool. Yeah, I read it a lot about the CBT before I met Jen, and then I've seen parallels as we're going through this, going, wow, this really, and then pulled out my other books and was rereading it, going, I see parallels here. But I wanted to ask you that question because I thought you would be the perfect person who would know that.
Yeah, that's
There are
great. That's
definitely
the
parallels.
hopes. The hopes are eventually all the dots will start to connect together.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Diane, thank you so very much. Ladies, thank you for your questions. I knew this would be a great conversation. And I know it could go on for a long time. Do you have any final thoughts, Diane, before we share your contact information? Anything you don't want to, I don't want you to
Just-
leave here and say, I wish I'd have said that.
Oh, I can't think of anything. I like the way that we just kind of let this flow, with questions or different comments and that kind of thing. And I really appreciate everyone's openness. I know that sometimes when we begin to talk about our own egos and our superiority and inferiority and our wrong thinking and all that kind of thing, it can make us feel a little defensive. So I just love having these dialogues with folks that have an openness where we can discuss it. And the only thing I would just want to say, I guess, in closing, is just to highlight the fact that if you're not being disciplined, some amount of commitment or discipline to your practice, don't kid yourself of thinking you're avoiding some kind of discomfort, because you're really not. I just want to encourage folks, whatever your path is, get on the path. Get on your path. Okay.
Whatever your path is, get on the path, baby. You know it. Diane's website is authentic-life.net. That's authentic-life.net. I've looked around at her website and there's incredible articles in her blog, like mindful Christmas shopping, your mental health and politics, basic steps to prevent anxiety attacks. There's really so many great articles in that blog, pages and pages. Please take a look around, see what resonates. There's some great articles there. And Diane offers her email address for any personal questions you may have. And that's Diane at authentic-life.net. Diane at authentic-life.net. We'll send this information out and more tomorrow in the follow-up email, along with the link for the replay. Please visit zenfulconversations.com to sign up for more of the Zenful Conversations, where you get to ask the questions. Diane, in gratitude and so much peace, you sign your emails in peace, and I love that. I'm going to adopt that myself. So everyone, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for listening. Thank you always for your great questions. We'll see you next time. Namaste.
Bye.
Namaste, everyone.
Have a beautiful day.
Thank
You too. I'll be talking with you. I'm gonna follow up with you, Diane, and thank you again so much.
Oh, you're so
Namaste,
welcome.
everyone.
Be well.